Wonderful. Well, thank you, Lorna, and thank you all for joining. Very happy to be here. As Lorna said, I'm the outreach coordinator for the Connecticut Department of Banking. And I'm going to talk really briefly about our agency, but I'm going to go right in and share my screen so that I bring the presentation right up and we can get right into it. So let's see, there we go. And let me just see if I can minimize this. There we go. Okay, shows me a little bit more on my screen here. All right, wonderful. So as mentioned, I'm with the State Department of Banking. We are a state agency. We're a state regulatory agency. Most people have heard of the DMV, Department of Motor Vehicles, and the DOT with the highways, of course, with I-95 and the Merit right there. You're very familiar with those agencies. The Department of Banking pretty much regulates financial services, and we regulate entities and professionals for the most part. State chartered banks and credit unions. So your local community banks for the most part, and credit unions as well. Consumer credit, in that area, we regulate mortgage. So any mortgage person or entity or your mortgage servicer that you send your payments to every month. Any issues with them, you would contact us. Also in the non-depository sector, we regulate money transmitters. So if you have to wire money, some people don't necessarily have a traditional bank account, so they might need to go to a check cashing facility. In your area, my guess is Stamford might have a few, but most definitely Norwalk, Bridgeport, Waterbury, cities like that have places where you could go in and cash a check. And the reason we regulate them is that there's certain consumer protections that fall into place. Student loan servicers, debt collectors, they all fall under our realm. And then, of course, our largest area that we regulate is the securities industry. So investment professionals, financial planners, broker dealers, they're all regulated by us. And so that's actually why I have a position at the agency, because I'm in our communications area and involved with educational outreach, because our mission is to protect consumers and investors. We do it through regulation and we do it through the educational outreach that I do. So without further ado, I want to get right into our program. Lorna, did I see something pop up in the chat? Did anybody have a question before I begin?
No, I just mentioned that we were going to be recording the session.
Oh, okay, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so I definitely wanted to talk about, and I think Lorna and I, when we were planning this, we kind of talked about, banking, traditional banking is, certainly many of us, I certainly still write checks, balance a checkbook every month as much as I can. But I will say I'm definitely in the bank much less often than, ever in my lifetime. Online banking is very prevalent. Mobile banking, which it's pretty much online banking, but we're using an app, using our phones here, using our banking apps. And then also these payment apps. When I do programs and presentations for students and young adults, this is what they're using. This is what they're using. They're rarely even, seeing actual cash. I like to have money in my pocket. I like to have some cash on me at all times, but I think we're all noticing it's much less frequent that we find ourselves pulling out the change at the grocery store. And and honestly, these peer-to-peer apps that have been developed have really made things very easy, especially you may have family across the country, and let's say you're all going in on flowers for somebody for an event. It's very nice to be able to send each other money. So these payment apps like Venmo, PayPal is a wonderful thing to be able to use for online payments. If let's say you're on a site where you're not comfortable giving your credit card, but you've got something like PayPal, it's basically your payment service. Lets you send the money either through your phone or your device, like your laptop or your iPad. It can be linked to either your bank account or credit card, and you just use it to make the purchases or to send money. There are precautions we all need to take, though. We all need to be careful with this because it is technology. And in this day and age, we want to know that we're being safe. When it comes to these apps, I always say, first of all, let's even just talk about online banking. Um, you I always suggest you 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 type so let's just say I hate to pick out any specific bank, but let's just say I'm like Webster Bank. You type in Webster Bank, and when that comes up, that's what you want to utilize. I always say to people, if you get an email, even if it's from your bank, I'm always a little more hesitant to click on that email or to click on that link and to the open up the bank's online presence because I always feel like just the best security is you typing something into a browser yourself. So that's one precaution I'm going to revisit as well because that comes up when we talk about frauds and scams. Um, but again, with the apps, make sure when you download that app, first of all, that your device is secure. We're going to talk about that in a moment too. But make sure you're getting it from a reputable the App Store, either your Apple Store or if you have the Galaxies, you get it right from there as well because you want to make sure you're using a legitimate app. Because if you're using an app that you may or may not know if we've all heard of Venmo, we've all heard of Zelle, Cash App is another one. If there's one, if you have any hesitations, I say don't use it. Okay. But once you've got the app and you're all set with using it, the biggest thing is only send money to people you know or make a payment to a trusted entity. And before you hit send, you want to triple check that you're sending it to the right person. Um, I also suggest not to use public Wi-Fi for any of these financial transactions. Gosh, I saw a commercial and it looked like it said, "Oh, online banking is so easy, you could do it anywhere." And I think they showed someone in a store. And I just cringed because I'm thinking, okay, well, as long as you're not using the store's unsecured Wi-Fi, when you're doing anything that comes to making payments or going into your banking, don't use public Wi-Fi. Okay. Um, Make sure your computer or mobile device, make sure the software is fully up to date. It's so important. I know on our iPads and on our phones, it could be a real pain to download that update, but there's security patches. There's different reasons why they've made an update. And these scammers are constantly trying to get through these filters. So always, always update your apps and update your software. And then we want to watch out for phishing texts and emails, and we're going to definitely talk about those. Before we do, though, I'd like to just briefly just review identity theft because ultimately, when somebody wants to steal our personal information, personal identifying information in particular, that PII, as you see on the screen, it's your name, address, phone number, but really what they want, date of birth, social security, even your account information. They get that, they've got your bank account or they've got your credit card number. We know they could go on a spending spree and they are committing identity theft. So they're in effect becoming us. So this is what we want to avoid. This is why for the rest of the presentation, I'm going to be talking about common banking scams and frauds that occur online that are coming at us that the whole purpose is for these fraudsters to commit identity theft. With enough information, they will go out and apply for credit. They'll go down to Target and Walmart, apply for credit with our information, and walk out with thousands of dollars worth of products and electronics. They might even take out loans. Some may counterfeit checks with our information. If they've gotten that bank account number of ours and they know what bank it's affiliated with, they can easily go and make counterfeit checks. They basically go on a spending spree in our name, and we may not find out about it until a lot of damage has been done. They go about this in different ways. There's old-fashioned ways. There's still if our wallet or purse is stolen. Dumpster diving, it's exactly what it sounds like. They will dive into dumpsters, and if we're not careful and shred important information, they could just, if it's torn in half or torn into quarters, they're happy to just paste it back together. We're going to talk about phishing scams, these phishing texts and emails. that come through to us literally on a daily basis. Quishing, I'm going to talk about those a little bit. That has to do with QR codes. Um, ATM skimming, I'm not really going into too much today, but we just want to take precautions when using ATMs. And anytime we're in the stores and swiping our credit cards, if anything about the device just doesn't seem right, I always say, just don't do it. Just go to a different register if need be, or if you're at a gas station or at an ATM. And I always say, trust your instincts with these things. If something doesn't feel right, don't use it. And I will talk about social media scams as well. All right. So the first thing, first and foremost, as I mentioned, is we're only as safe as the device we're on. Okay. Those systems and software have to be kept up to date. Most of us know our work. Right now, I'm using my work laptop right here. I have regular updates. In fact, yesterday when I was logging off, it said, don't turn it off right away. It's going to run updates first, and you just got to let it go. Usually let them go overnight. On your home devices, when you purchase it, make sure it's set up that way. Or when you purchase certain softwares, see if it could be set up to be run. If not, on a regular basis, I would even go as far as saying every month or every 6 weeks, go in and just run a software update. It'll check, it'll make sure your device is current. As I mentioned too, the apps, if you're using banking apps or mobile payment apps, things like that, even your social media, I have found that the social media apps pretty regularly run those software patches. So go in, you can even on your iPhone right now, you could just go into the App Store, and you may see that you have some updates that need to run. So just go ahead and run them. Home Wi-Fi, needless to say, make sure your home Wi-Fi is secure and is a network that if somebody is in your home, they need to log into. Not to really go too much off tangent, but I know our IT folks said if you have people over a lot and you're just not comfortable sharing it, you can actually have a guest password set up just for guests to use. And then strong passwords and two-factor authentication is key. I'm going to stop after this and answer some questions, but two-factor authentication, it's been described to me as a password is like locking your door. Two-factor authentication is like a deadbolt. So if you've noticed, any of your online bank accounts, credit card accounts, anywhere where you're putting in a credit card, often are starting to require two-factor. And that just means in addition to your password, it's going to send you a code. And you have to check your code and put usually it's about a 6-digit code. Oftentimes you can have it text your phone. Some people prefer to call it. I even know my sons do gaming. And every once in a while they say, oh, give me the code because it's logging it back in. And that's just for safety and security. Okay. So I can stop right there while you're looking at this screen because I've already reviewed this. Lorna, any questions?
Yeah,
At this point?
there are two here. The first
Good.
one is from the beginning. How will deregulation efforts at the national level impact your efforts?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Deregulation
I think they want to know if your
of
ability
online.
to do your job is going to be affected by what is going on at the federal level right now. Is that?
Um, I, I don't know the answer to that. We're not affected. We're a state government agency. And in the banking realm, there is, they call it, oh, it is escaping me, but the United States is a dual banking system. So as I said, the Connecticut Department of Banking regulates state chartered banks and credit unions. Your community banks, I'm not sure if there's a Bank of Greenwich. I know at one point, I know there was like a Bank of New Canaan. These community banks we regulate. Nothing that happens on the federal level should affect that. Federal banks like Bank of America, Webster Banks, maybe like Chase, banks like that, they are federally regulated, and I wouldn't be the right person to answer anything like that. As far as all of our non-depository, I know and I'm just speaking as myself. I don't want to come across that I'm speaking on behalf of the Department of Banking with this question because I wasn't really prepared for this. But from what I understand, something like the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, CFPB, we get a lot of educational information from them, and I know sometimes when it comes to different issues consumers call us about, we might refer them there. But our consumer credit division is a very active division in terms of licensing. So any of those non-depository, they are licensed, registered, and enforced on the state level. So I don't see personally any of that really changing. And so I'm not really sure what specific deregulation the person is asking about, but I haven't heard anything in our area as far as anything that the Connecticut Department of Banking regulates at this point. But again,
Okay.
I wouldn't be the right person. We have a legislative person. My boss actually is a legislative person, and of course, our commissioner and our general counsel would be more privy to something like that. But the wonderful thing is at the end, I'll give our email address. So if that's a question that somebody wants to email, and maybe if somebody kind of higher up in the chain would know, if you're very interested, I can certainly pass that along.
Okay, thank you. The
Sure.
next one is too many service providers, hotels, doctors, dentists, realtors, even car dealers ask for personal identification information. For example, a driver's license and/or social security number. Is that legally permitted? Can consumers assert legal rights and decline?
Yeah, I have found that in some cases, so I know a lot of things were mentioned. Your doctor's office, I believe, needs your social security number, but once you have established yourselves with them, do you need to show it every time you go? I don't think so. And sometimes, I think when you've been to that office a few times and you're filling out the form again, I don't know that you have to give it a second time. Other places that would seem odd, a hotel or something like, I forget one of the other ones that were mentioned. Yeah, if it seems odd to give your social, I would certainly ask and leave it off unless they come back to you and say, well, we need your social for XYZ. Credit card, I have to say, in order to get a credit card, whether it's a major, credit card like, Discover or Citibank or American Express, or even a store card, if you go into Kohl's or Macy's, you have to give your social security number because the credit cards share that information with credit reporting bureaus. So in order to get your credit score, in order to really establish credit, that's a place where they have to have your credit card. But many of these other places, something like your social security, they shouldn't need. And if they're asking for driver's license also, I always ask. If I ever feel funny about it, I always ask. Normally they're just it's certainly in a bank. If you bring a check to a bank that you don't belong to, like if I'm a Webster customer and I go to Bank of America, they're going to want to know who I am. So they have every right to ask for my driver's license. They don't take it in a back room and make a photocopy usually. They usually just look at it, look at you, and then you're on your way. But I always say, if you're ever in doubt or if your gut is ever telling you something doesn't feel right, I say don't do it.
Okay, we got a couple more in here now.
Sure.
All right, we'll do these two and then we'll move ahead. Hello,
Okay.
I'm interested in your opinion about Plaid, Plaid. I was asked to give my bank password through Plaid. This was through the real consignment payments in order to fund Venmo, or real consignment payments in order to fund Venmo.
I'm not familiar with that. I've never heard of it. So I'm afraid I can't help you with that. I think that's something, if this was through your bank, I think you'll have to ask the bank about that.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what plaid.
Regarding password protection, I've been making my own passwords and keeping a log of those passwords. Do you recommend we stop this practice and use an app that creates and manages all of my passwords? If so, which apps do you recommend?
Okay. So I cannot recommend any in particular. What I will say in general is to do your research. There are certainly ones that are more well known, and when you look up and do a little bit of research, it some come up more frequently than others. I know there are some on our, there are some where you could keep passwords on your phone. I think Google has one. Others, I can't really recommend one more than the other. But I do think that's a good idea. I say you need to go along with your own comfort zone. Um, the one thing, listen, there are, we each have, we're all supposed to have a unique password for everything. And literally, how are we going to remember minimally 25 to 50 passwords for things? It's impossible. So we're going to write them down, right? You need to keep it in a very secure place. My IT person would be going mad right now if he heard me saying this, because he would say not to write anything down. But, one trick could be something an IT person shared with me is to memorize to memorize a password, to memorize something, and try not to write it down, or if you have it written down, have it, not in a sticky right next to your laptop, but maybe have it somewhere. And then every password for every website or app or social media would go in addition to that. So let's just say your password is, and please don't use A, B, C, D, E, F, G, but let's just say it's A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And then every password from there on would be in addition to that. And on a sheet of paper, you would just write down. So you would write down Webster Bank and you would write something down. And that goes at the end of the part you memorized. And maybe I can come back on this later and explain it, but beyond that, it's really hard to memorize everything. So I do think some of these password managers are very helpful. It's just your comfort zone in using them.
Okay, so we're getting into time now, but I just
Yeah.
somebody said Plaid is used to fund Venmo. Different companies use Plaid to verify your bank account. If you want to add money from your bank account to Venmo, it asks for your bank password through Plaid. And somebody else responded, Plaid is an authenticator and you shouldn't have to give your password to anyone. So I don't know what you know about that, but anyway, so
I don't know anything about it. I apologize. So many banks use different things. And we just, if it comes to the various things, I just tell people to just work with your bank on that. So, okay. All right. Are we good right now?
yes.
Okay, great. All right. So I'm going to move on. So now I want to share some of these. I talked about phishing scams that we may see. So these are these emails or texts. We get them all the time. I'm going to be showing some to you, and I guarantee at least half of you probably have gotten very similar phishing emails or texts to the ones I'll be sharing. In fact, last week I was doing a presentation in person, and right before the program started, I got a scam. I got a scam text right to my cell phone. So it's happening to us all the time. We just need to recognize them, and we need to know just to delete them. So there's always a link. They always want you to either click a link. If it's a text, they sometimes want you to respond with a Y or an N or something like that. They want a response from us. They might want us to confirm information. The link may bring us to a phony site that looks legitimate. Sometimes emails come through that look like they're from your bank. But we know, if any of us have a relationship with our bank where they email us once a month, they email us our statement. And then maybe they email marketing. Oh, we have a new loan product or things like this. But it's never, there's an issue, there's an urgency. I need you to respond to this right away. We've had something compromised. It would never come through in an email like that. Okay. It might also download some software onto your device, like malware. Okay. So we want to be careful. Some of these, like I said, hopefully many of these will look familiar to you. Now, the first one I'm going to share, these all are legitimate. They're not legitimate. These are all actual emails or texts that I've gotten to my device. So this one, it did make me take pause because it came through from Apple, looked like it was coming through from Apple. But everything about this, once you really look at it, there's no name. It just says hello. There's a case ID with a link, which is very odd. And then when you start reading the actual email, there's another case. So they weren't really smart about this. There's urgency. I need to update information in 24 hours. And all of these also cause some sort of an emotional response. I'm concerned about this because my Apple ID, how am I going to get apps or how am I going to log into things without my Apple ID if it's going to be permanently locked? So I was concerned. It looks legitimate. There's a logo, there's a link that says it's going to billing, but we need to be careful. And with something like this, there's several things you can do. The first thing I did was try contacting Apple. I tried calling, and I also went to their website. I didn't click this link and go to the website. I opened a separate browser, typed in apple.com, went to the customer service, and looked to see if there were any. Sometimes these companies have alerts that tell you that there's, that their information is out there and might be compromised. When I called, I actually talked to somebody and they said, nope, we did not send these emails. We would not send these emails. The third thing you can do is a Google search. If any of you have Googled lately, AI is creating some responses. Just skip past those. Go down to you get to legitimate responses from email. And sure enough, things were coming up that said other people were getting these types of emails as well. Now, how do I know that's not a valid email address? I'm going to share this with you on this screen. This is an example of one we call spoofing because it's coming through from somebody in your contact list. Melissa happens to be a contact of mine. She's a friend of mine. We very rarely email. So that was my one red flag. It was strange that she emailed. But ooh, what is my emotional response? I'm interested. I'm curious. I want to see these pictures she's sending. But take a look at it. And if any of you have gotten emails like this, it's usually a forward. Why would my friend write in the subject line pictures from Melissa, right? That's just strange. And then, but it is supposed to pique your curiosity. But generally, there's certain sites that photos come from. Google, Shutterfly, Snapfish. There's different types of sites that are known for sharing pictures. But here's the other thing. If you want to check and see, where did this email actually come from? So up where the person's name is, on a regular laptop, you would right click, right? So it's coming in from Melissa. You right click that and see there right on the screen, U20180394 at Univo. That is not her email address. Now, if you're on your cell phone or other device, at least I know on the iPhone, you hold down, you just press down. So on the screen before, I would press down Apple, where it's coming from, and the email address comes out. That's one of the best ways to find out is to check the email. And then the other thing I always tell people is if it looks like it's from a friend, but it's really odd, and why would my friend want me to click a link? Text your friend, call your friend, reach out to them and ask, okay? Another one, I'm just gonna go through a few before I stop for questions, but this is a sample text scam where it's called like the prize winning. You've won a prize. Well, I like to use the motto, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. There is no way that myself and 5 other people randomly were chosen to win a $1,000 Amazon gift card. And all I have to do is click a link. And some of you may be thinking, well, Kathleen, why don't you just click the link and see what happens? Well, several things. One, I don't want it to download some malware or a virus onto my device. The second, it may look like a legitimate screen that then is going to ask for personal information. And they're very savvy. Just to redeem this gift card, just put your bank account information in and we will just deposit it into your bank account. Or sometimes it's, people won't want to share their bank account information, but it's just a small fee. It's just a small processing fee of $250. But when you do that, guaranteed there's going to be more texts or emails coming asking you for more. So the best thing to do is just remember that emotional response of being excited of winning a prize, it's very likely not true. So just delete. All right, now these next few are text scams that literally have been coming in the last, I would say, I'll say the last 6 months, but even more recent. These are gonna be very familiar. If any of you have not gotten these job recruiter ones, you'll have definitely gotten one of these others that I'm going to share. But the 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 red flags with these, too good to be true. How many of us want to work 30 minutes to an hour per day and make $200 to $800? USD, US dollars, no dollar sign. So that's a little bit shows you that this is probably coming from out of the country. The other thing with these types of text scams is they always want you to move to a different platform. WhatsApp is often used by these scammers. You never want to download WhatsApp or start communicating with somebody that you don't know or who has contacted you unexpectedly. I like to say out of the blue, unprovoked. This person here, Maria from ZipRecruiter, it's if I was interested in work, I need to go out and actually search for it myself. Okay, so please be very careful with these. Another very similar one is this one came in from Verona at iCrossing. And if you look again, the daily salary is just too good to be true. And of course, she wants to move me over to WhatsApp. All right. Best thing to do is just delete. And if you actually see here, my other suggestion was going to be to look this up a little more. Maybe you can look up iCrossing and go directly. If I don't even know if it's a legitimate entity. I know ZipRecruiter is. I would say go directly to those sources and see if you could find the jobs on the actual job board, not through a random text that has just come to you out of the blue. All right, here's one. This one, the Federal Trade Commission is just putting more alerts out about this because this is kind of coming around again. But your package arrived, can't be delivered, urgency, you need to respond in 12 hours, click this link. And same as I've been saying, it's all the same. It's all just coming at us differently. And they hope that one of these will cause us to, oh, I just ordered something. And yeah, it hasn't arrived yet. And I haven't gotten an email about it yet. But think about this, everybody. When you order a package to come from somewhere, the confirmation comes from that entity, whether it's Amazon or whether you've ordered from LL Bean or if you've ordered from directly from a store. The store will email you. Why would the post office or UPS or FedEx be emailing you or texting you? The answer is they wouldn't be. So we need to remember this. Issues with packages, you go directly to the source where you've ordered the package. All right, and now, of course, the toll roads. This is one, I literally got one of these. I've probably gotten 10 of these since January, but I literally got one the day after I was up driving on the Mass Pike. I was going to Boston to relative's house and I was on the Mass Pike. And after you get one of these the first time, then you'll just delete them right away. But I know the very first time I got this, it was January and these things were just coming out. It made me pause. And what I tell people is, again, know the red flags. There's never an urgency. No bill we've ever gotten has told us we have to pay within 12 hours. It just doesn't happen. And we wouldn't be asked to go to a random website like this. We would go to, say, EasyPass. Maybe we would go to our EasyPass. But whatever relationship you have, whatever toll relationship you have, you go to that website. And these do cause people to worry because nowadays we're not really stopping at toll booths like we used to. We're not paying. Even with the EasyPass, we were kind of just slowing down and waiting for that green light. Now, when I drove on the Mass Pike, you just drive and it captures your license plate. unless you have your Easy Pass there. So just remember, these are scams. These are another way these scammers are trying to come at us through texting. Okay, so I can stop here and address any of these specific phishing questions. While you read what I have, it's basically what I've gone over already. But Lorna, if anyone has questions at this point,
I don't, there are no new questions, just somebody
okay?
else, somebody kind of followed up on the Plaid thing and said they were asked to use Plaid to set up Venmo and chose to take a little more time and only work with my bank, as every extra vendor involved is another potential hack. So they did not work with Plaid.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, just to be clear, I don't want to talk about something I'm not familiar with because I can't I don't want to, you know, not give you guys the best information I could. So I appreciate everybody, you know, talking about Plaid. I just know with Venmo, I happen to have Venmo and I've never used a different entity with Venmo at all. So that, again, I'm just going back to just check with your bank on that. So
That's it for
I
now.
do.
Go ahead, I
Okay,
guess.
great, great. Okay, so I do want to also talk about quishing just really quick. I just want to keep my eye on the time because I have a few more things to get to. But the quishing are just, they're those QR codes. And the funny thing is, the last time I did a program where I talked about quishing, I happened to be on a college campus, in a room on a college campus. And if you walk down the halls of any school, there are flyers all over the walls, and they all have QR codes. So I wanted to be very clear. QR codes, we use them. Excuse me, at the Department of Banking. We sometimes have QR codes on postcards that we bring when we are at a resource fair or things like that. The biggest thing with these is to know the source, know where they're coming from. If you're in a restaurant and the menu is a QR code and you use your device and you get it, it'll come up and it'll say there, it'll give the web address and you know you're getting the menu, right? You know you're in the facility. This is more if you're somewhere, let's say, where you're parking, maybe the parking garage or parking meters, and there's a QR code, and maybe it looks like it's been, maybe it looks like it's a sticker that's over another sticker. That could be a false QR code over a legitimate one, okay? Or sometimes I say here the drive-through lanes. Somebody just randomly put a sticker up for a QR code. You know, there's curiosity. What is it for? Or maybe you think it's affiliated with wherever you're going through the drive-through lane, but you just want to be very careful. You just want to be careful. And I think my next slide, yeah, what to do, inspect the source. You know, if there's another one below the one you see, you want to be a little bit leery. Always check that URL. And then the key with these, if you're just opening it and reading information, no harm done. It's if it wants personal information or if it's at like a parking meter and you think you're using it to pay, or if you're at a gas pump, be very leery. Okay. So that's when it comes to quishing. I just wanted to be sure to share that. Now, these tech support scams are ones that I definitely want to share when it comes to our online presence, because we're online all the time. We're all online right now, whether you're on a laptop, phone, or iPad. We're all on some kind of a device. And if suddenly a pop-up window occurred that told us there was an issue with our device, we might be a little concerned. So we want to be able to differentiate those pop-ups, regular pop-ups that tell us there's a software update. You know, it usually comes up in the bottom corner from Microsoft or from, you know, our computer brand, or from telling us that there's a software update. That's different than something, it comes up, it usually makes us feel concerned. There's urgency. Sometimes it flashes. I've been told that on occasion these pop-ups could sort of flash on and off. And oftentimes it provides a telephone number for support. You never want to call that convenient number that pops up. You want to independently look up and call Microsoft or contact Apple if you're using an Apple device. Because if you continue on the path of either clicking the link or calling their number, they may request remote access. And Remote access in general, if any of you have used it, could be very helpful. I've used it with my work IT. I have a Mac computer at home. And when I first got it and I was having some issues and I called, they requested remote access. They fixed things and got off and everything was fine. There's a big difference between you being in control of requesting that and unexpectedly or unwantedly a pop-up occurs and now you're letting this pop-up take remote control. That's different and you don't want to do that. So just remember, am I in control or is this coming at me? And that's a big thing to remember because even like I say, you're not in control if you're clicking on a link that has been provided to you, right? Whether it was in a text, an email, or now whether it's in a pop-up, okay? And certainly if they ask you to wire money, gift cards, or cryptocurrency, it's definitely a scam, okay? Don't click unsolicited pop-ups, links, or anything sent through text messages or email attachments. Don't contact that phone number provided in the pop-up. Don't download software at the request of this unknown either pop-up or text or email. And don't let an unknown person take control of your computer, okay? And I mentioned cryptocurrency. This is definitely, we talked about ATMs, just ATM safety a little bit. But with a lot of these scams, unfortunately, what we're hearing is if a person unfortunately ends up thinking it's real and ends up thinking they're doing the right thing. Let's just say it's one of those scams. It's a phone scam and they think a family member is in trouble and they go immediately off to their bank to wire money. Oftentimes what a scammer is doing now is saying, we're not going to send you to a bank. We're not going to have you wire money. We wouldn't have you do that. But if you go to a cryptocurrency ATM and it's the quickest, easiest way to do this, and we can listen, unless you are, and many people are very savvy with cryptocurrency these days, and that's okay. As long as they know what they're doing. And with crypto, we always say, if you know you can lose money, then you know you can, it can grow or it could, fall. That's a whole nother topic that I'm not going to get into. So please don't ask me a question about cryptocurrency. But when it comes to scams, if you are sent by someone you don't know or someone that texted or emailed you out of the blue, again, you're not in control. You don't know them. You don't know for sure who is on the other end of that email or text. You never want to go to a cryptocurrency kiosk and put your money in there because it's gone. It's pretty much unrecoverable. Okay. Our department has worked with the state police in recent years. I think there are new consumer protections. I think when you go to a crypto kiosk, different messages pop up to sort of, have you been contacted by someone? Are you here under your own, free will or things like that? But cryptocurrency, it's more and more being used by scammers. Okay. Any questions at this point, Lorna?
Yes. This person says, I use Apple and Mac devices which have good security systems built into their operating software. Should I be adding a third-party malware protection app to these devices?
You're right. The Apple and the Mac devices are definitely a lot more secure. I leave that to the conversation you had when you purchased that with, I know a lot of times, the stores often want to sell you more, but I know when I purchased mine initially, they did say it was very safe and secure. I'm just one that always likes to take the extra step. So, malware it was always, or anti-malware or antivirus. It's always a good thing to have. I always say, to go with your instinct and what you feel the most comfortable with.
Also, I think really important to keep your system up to date.
Oh, definitely. I said that right from the get-go. Yep. That was the first thing on that slide earlier. Have to keep your software up to date because the scammers, they're just constantly, they're very tech savvy. So they're constantly, this is why we always have regular updates, almost probably at least on a quarterly basis, their software updates. Yes.
Okay. If you see an authorized access to your security screen, I don't know if they mean unauthorized.
Probably.
If you're there, or you believe your device security has been compromised, what are the steps to immediately secure your information and then follow up to see if any info was stolen?
Right. So one thing, and this is a very good habit, is on your devices that you have at home, don't stay logged in, particularly banking. Social media is a little bit different because there's not much people can get into, hacking social media. But with anything like if you go online to pay credit cards, banking, like your apps like Venmo and Zelle and things like that, I recommend not staying logged in. Log in when you go to use them, because if you are somehow hacked, what I would say is the first thing to do is to close those and to log out of those and immediately change like if you think that you've been compromised, the first thing they'll tell you to do is to change your passwords. So this is where if you have one password for everything and somebody gets in gets your password, it's everything is compromised. So you want to make sure to close down everything, close down your device. And if you're concerned about malware, then I would say to take it to a reputable place to have them check it out.
That's it for now.
Okay, great. All right, so now we're talking about social media. So because social media, we have an online presence on social media, I wanted to make sure to include this. So I'm not going to spend too much time on these dating romance scams, but just to know that, listen, scammers will do anything. I talked about them dumpster diving. They will even try to make a connection with you online. At least once a week, I get somebody from out of state, or I think females tend to get more people reaching out to them through these dating apps. I could be wrong, but if I don't know a person, if I have no connection with a person, even if it's somebody that happens to just be, in my town, but I have no connection with them, I don't know why I need to be on social media with them. So don't feel you have to accept all these requests. You know, what they do is target people that tend to be a little lonelier and more isolated. So certainly during the COVID years when people weren't leaving their homes and everything, people were ripe for somebody to just develop a communication with. I don't even say a romance initially. It was a communication initially. Um, but they often do it through these dating sites. I'm hearing even online gaming, all of a sudden becoming friendly with, or maybe even just a wrong number text. But they want, again, to move over to another platform, which is usually WhatsApp. And with these classic dating scams, they quickly begin to layer on the compliments and express strong feelings. They can never meet in person, and ultimately they need money. And they either want you to send gift cards or somehow wire money, or like I say, crypto, or may even encourage you to make investments. And we are seeing investment fraud through online scams come in really kind of nationally. We're hearing this through the state police quite a bit. So just be leery with this, and really, if somebody really wants to date you and romance you, they really want to meet you in person. And if after a short amount of time they can't, that's one of the biggest red flags. So never send money to anyone you haven't met. You don't want to believe these promises that this person that you really don't know can help you make money through investments. They may show a big, huge house. They may be dressed great. They may have jewels. It's all fake. We know. I can show you any background right now and claim to be anybody who I say I am. Luckily, you're working with the Greenwich Library, and they know and they vetted me that I legitimately am with the Connecticut Department of Banking, and you can look me up. But anyways, back to this. Be suspicious about why they can't meet in person. I've never done this myself, but there were reverse image searches that people have shared with me. In fact, a woman shared with me that her mother, after her dad had passed away, somebody reached out to her on social media and claimed to be a friend of his through a veterans group, and he was very active. And so he was using that to make a connection. And the daughter did a reverse image search, and this man was playing women all over the place. So I thought that was really interesting. I wanted to include it. And then the other thing, people with these dating scams, they often find themselves keeping it a secret because deep down, they know that it's a scam. They know that it's not real, but yet they're thinking with their heart and not their head. Investment scams, I started to mention, I definitely need to mention because according to the Federal Trade Commission, more more phishing scams, the phishing and texting scams that I've been talking about, more of them are reported, but more money is lost to investment scams. So please be very careful. If you have an investment professional you use, stick with them. Um, oftentimes it's not that somebody is more savvy or less savvy. It's just it just depends on how these scammers are coming at us, and they make up these credentials. You may see something on social media, on TikTok or on Instagram, and think, you know what? My advisor's not doing much for me, or I'm not really sure what's going on in this economy. I'm not ready to just ride it out. Like my advisor is telling me, I really want to see something now. And this person is promising quick, high returns, no risk. These are all classic signs of investment fraud. Okay, so we want to be very careful. Cryptocurrency is very enticing. Just know the pros and cons. We have information on the Department of Banking website about cryptocurrency to just, that's not government backed. They say it's untraceable, but that's not necessarily true. And but the scammers are out there using it. So we just want to make sure to share that. Again, I'll leave you to just sort of, glance over this, but any of us that are familiar with investing know investments carry risk. No cryptocurrency or any fabulous investment has no risk. It's just not, it just doesn't exist. Okay. And when in doubt, we always suggest using a registered professional. Okay. So social media, limit who can see your posts and limit your information on social media. Needless to say, you don't have to be friends with everybody who reaches out to you, and use those privacy settings. Check out your privacy settings and see if there's restrictions. Messages from a friend about this urgent need for money, contact them. If a friend reaches out to you through your messaging app, but it seems odd or weird, check into it. Call them independently, through another source, reach out to them. Because sometimes our friends' accounts may have been hacked. I say slow down. There's no rush when it comes to meeting somebody on social media, sharing money, or anything like that. When it comes to your account information, please, 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 I go back to the beginning with identity theft. Just 100% know what you're doing with it. And, if you're sending money, if you're wiring money overseas to someone you've just had this online communication with, and you don't want to talk about it with anyone in your family, those are signs that it's probably not legitimate. Okay. And always research. I say here before you buy anything, social media, I'm talking here about Kohl's and LL Bean and things. And if I start talking about Coach bags, all of a sudden on my social media, I'm going to start seeing ads. And you never want to just click on that ad and make purchases because it may not be legitimate. If you independently open up your own browser and look up that Coach bag and the sale is there, wonderful. Purchase it there, not through the online ad. Okay. Social media is great for information, but I wouldn't jump right in and make any purchases there. So I also want to share one of the last things. I know we've got 5 minutes left, and I want to leave more time for questions too, but just keep in mind, artificial intelligence is out there. When you see celebrities promoting items or talking about things, they're either being paid to promote. Many celebrities were promoting cryptocurrency, FTX, if you're familiar with it, that is no longer in existence. Tom Brady and his wife, there was a Super Bowl commercial and they were promoting it. So you just can't, there can't be like a fear of missing out with any of this kind of thing. But also too with online and through social media, oftentimes there's deep fakes, they call it. They're phony videos that it's not even real. And if Scarlett Johansson or Taylor Swift or somebody seems to be talking to you, or you find yourself, in a communication with them, it's very likely not them. And again, I share this because I was literally at a program, and a woman came up to me and said that a celebrity she was in communication with them about purchasing a vehicle. So it's not funny because she really thought that it was real. She said, his lips are moving, he's talking, he's answering me. But it is very concerning what this AI technology could do. So just remember classic signs of these scams. Okay. The urgency, it's unsolicited, it wants personal information, and the payment methods are usually very odd. If you think your information has been lost or stolen, what should you do? Identitytheft.gov is the Federal Trade Commission website where you can file an identity theft report directly with the federal government. That is the best resource. You can contact my agency, you can contact the Department of Banking, but the best thing we're going to do is refer you up to the federal government for that because they are the best source. The FBI is another resource. You could file an identity theft report with your local police. I've been told sometimes the local police, aren't willing to help too much. Go to the state police. The state police has a financial crimes area where they work on financial crimes, particularly if cryptocurrency is involved. 100% go to the police with that. Always, I tell people, check your credit report. If you're concerned even that your credit card number was stolen, let's say your credit card company calls you and says, oh, did you make a purchase yesterday in Springfield, Massachusetts? And you say, no, I never left Fairfield County, much less Greenwich. And they'll say, okay, we're not gonna charge you for that. Well, you may still want to check your credit report, because if somebody somehow got your credit card number, you want to make sure that they didn't have access to other information and maybe have been applying for credit in your name. Fraud alerts or credit freezes are things that you could look into if you go to annualcreditreport.com. And then certainly you want to close any affected accounts that happened. Normally, if your bank knows that there have been purchases, they will reach out to you. But let's say you open your bank statement and you see all these purchases, you immediately want to go to your bank, change that number, maybe close that account, open up a new account, and the same with the credit card companies. Okay, but there's definitely help out there, and you want to work quickly if you're concerned that any of your information was compromised. And here is our contact information here. There's that email I talked about, banking.complaints@ct.gov is where you can not just complain, but you can certainly send inquiries to our consumer affairs folks, and they could help you out with that. Our website is ct.gov/DOB. And we also have a Facebook page where we try to share different types of information for consumers and investors. So with that, Lorna, if there are more questions, I'm happy to address them.
So this isn't posed as a question, but I think they're asking your opinion. I have switched over to using a PayPal debit card as the funds are set by what I add, as long as you do not allow automatic adding funds. It zeroes out when money is spent. I now have gone back to credit cards as the points offered are attractive. I'm debating between the two.
Yeah, you can use both. There is no what I was initially thinking was a lot of times for people who are trying to let's say if they've overcharged or found themselves putting too much on credit cards, something like using your debit is a nice way of preventing you from overspending, right? Is it keeps you from just spending what's in the account, but then you're not building credit. So a credit card is a good way of helping you, but it just goes to classic budgeting, don't charge more than you can afford to pay back. And the best thing with credit cards is to try to pay in full as much as you can.
Okay, and this person says, do you recommend we lock our home title?
That's beyond my realm. That has nothing to do with the Department of Banking, so I can't comment on that.
Okay, and that is it for questions. So thank you so much for presenting today, Kathleen,
Wonderful.
and
Well, thank you. And like
really
I said,
appreciate
go to
it.
our website for, and if there's, again, some of the information that I may not be able to address, there's other state agencies that might be, like we have a Department of Consumer Protection, which might have information on different other, different entities that they regulate. Certainly the State Attorney General's office. He's got great information. In fact, when it comes to fraud and scams, they have an elder justice hotline that I know on the Attorney General's website, but if you even just go to ct.gov and put in elder justice hotline, that's been a great number that the Attorney General has established um, for not just for seniors, but for fraud issues. So there's a lot of good information out there, and it's just being doing your research, being careful, try to use common sense. Remember all those red flags when it comes to being online.
Thank you
Here, and I'll,
very
I'll,
much.
I'll stop sharing. Thank you. Yes, thank
All
you, Lorna, and thank you all for attending. Appreciate you being here.
right, bye, thank you.
Thank you.